For our second story, we go to the world of football with the NFL's Hall of Fame inductions over the weekend. And what are some of your thoughts about some of the members who were just elected?
It's funny because I almost didn't get through that because you started laughing. Well, my first thoughts, honestly, was that I thought Brett Favre's speech was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not the biggest Brett Favre fan in the world. I know he's a great quarterback. He's an all-time great quarterback. But I was never a huge Brett Favre fan, regardless of what it was that one year he was on the Jets, whatever the heck you want to call that. But I really thought his speech was touching. I really thought it was enjoyable. I thought Tony Dungy's speech was going to get a little bit more fanfare than it did. I'm glad Marvin Harrison got in. Kevin Green was funny. I said overall, the NFL does a really good job of having a strong ceremony as a whole when they're bringing back former players, bringing back players that are already in the Hall of Fame. So they're always remembered for some of the iconic moments that they have. Emmitt Smith calling out Moose Johnson, Michael Irvin at the podium crying. They have some really iconic moments. So I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed the ceremonies. What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Obviously, Brett Favre was like the main star going into this weekend. He's a 3-time MVP. One of the greatest players at his position. Like you, I'm not the biggest fan of Brett Favre because I know I'm not the big gunslinger.
But he's the ultimate gunslinger. He's the one that brought gunslingers in the mainstream.
The NFL Network has a top 10, and it was heartbreaking losses, and usually had individual games. But one of them was Brett Favre at NFC Championship games because it was just too many. But Brett Favre, he wasn't one of my favorite players, but I always enjoyed watching him. He always had the most fun, it seemed. And I really liked Eddie DeBarros Jr.'s speech. He was the owner of the San Francisco 49ers for the longest time. He brought in Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and which brought in all those championships in the 80s and 90s. I found his speech impressive, and I'm a big fan of NFL history. So it was nice seeing Orlando Pace from the Greatest Show on Turf teams making it in. And I'm also a big fan of Ken Stabler finally getting in. Yeah. Unfortunately, he had passed over these past few years, and he was unable to attend, but his family was there. It was nice to see one of the most underrated quarterbacks of the 70s finally get in.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that Ken Stabler wasn't in the Hall of Fame until this year. I was a little surprised by that. Orlando Pace was just an anchor for those Greatest Show on Turf teams that when I was younger I really didn't like the Rams, partly because you like the Rams, and I've never been a huge Marshall Faulk fan, and Marshall Faulk's Marshall Faulk's your favorite.
He was my first, him and Torrey Holt were my first two favorite players.
Yeah, I know you idolize Marshall Faulk, but I was never a big Marshall Faulk fan. But as I got older, I realized that Greatest Show on Turf team was something special. Kurt Warner, I think, is one of my all-time favorite quarterbacks, especially after he took Arizona back to the Super Bowl. So I can't wait till he gets into the Hall of Fame, because you get in the Hall of Fame with 1 Super Bowl ring, 3 Super Bowl appearances, and you was bagging groceries 2 years before. So Kurt Warner's getting in the Hall of Fame, Matthew. I don't care what you guys say, but I think that all in all, it was a good showing. I enjoyed the performances. I enjoyed things that they did.
They didn't make it to the Super Bowl, and because the 2007 Patriots and because the Broncos a few years ago didn't win the Super Bowl, we just kind of thought that the Rams, the Greatest Show on Turf, might be the greatest offense of all time because they actually went out and won the Super Bowl. So no, I'm not that. I mean, even though Kurt Warner was the Marshall Faulk was the driving force, but Kurt Warner was the quarterback. I'm kind of iffy about Kurt Warner actually getting in the.
How are you iffy about Kurt Warner? Is because you're biased by the time that he spent on the Giants when everyone say he was lost.
That maybe has to do with it.
I think that's what it is, because you're biased about.
He seems to have disappeared from the NFL ether for 3 years.
I mean, those 3 years he helped, I don't know, get Eli Manning ready for the position. But I think Kurt Warner's I think he's gonna be a first ballot unless he was.
I don't know if he's gonna be first ballot. He might get in, but I don't think he's a first ballot.
He's going to get in. The question for me is whether or not he's first ballot or not. Kurt Warner, he went to the Super Bowl.
Honestly, I'm not sure about first ballot.
Let's put it this way: if it wasn't for, obviously, you could say if it wasn't for Mike Jones making the tackle, they don't beat the Titans, and that way his career looks a lot different going to the Super Bowl 3 different times and not winning anything. But you think about it: first of all, he played in 2 of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. Actually, he played in 3 of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wait a second. He played on the Last Yard, the longest yard when Mike Jones tackled Kevin Dyson in '99. He played in 2001 with the Adam Vinatieri field goal when the Patriots won for the first time, creating that dynasty. And then he won he was in the Super Bowl when the Steelers won the second to last play in the Super Bowl when Ben Roethlisberger hit Santonio Holmes with a little toe touch in the end zone to win the Super Bowl. He played in 3 of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. So
that's true. But if I'm
one of them.
I mean,
he was bagging groceries the year before, and he has an NFL MVP to his trophy, and to his name. There's no way in the world he's a Hall of Famer.
I know Sean Alexander has an MVP.
Yeah, but Sean Alexander didn't play in 3 Super Bowls. He was on the team for 1. I don't even remember if Sean Alexander played on that team or played in that game. He might have had a carry and then didn't fumble or something.
Calm down.
I can't believe you. How are you going to say that Kurt Warner's not a Hall of Famer?
I'm just looking at. Look at the early. The quarterbacks from like maybe 2000 to maybe 2008, 2007, and in my opinion, it's like Peyton, Brady, Favre, and Breeze. And I need to think about it because I don't know who I would have as that 5th spot, and that's always like a big determiner for a player's worth getting into the Hall of Fame.
So you're gonna tell me you'd rather have, and I'm not even talking about the era you're in. I'm talking about the era prior to that, maybe like in the early 2000s, when the best quarterbacks were Kurt Warner, they were Dante Culpepper, they were Jeff Garcia on the Niners, they were Donovan McNabb. Those were like the best quarterbacks in the NFL at the time. I don't even know if Brady. I don't even know if you put Brady in there. Maybe because I watched him
play the Giants a lot. Me and Dale argue about this because I feel like behind Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins is the best safety I've seen, and I think if Donovan McNabb, like his last 3 or 4 years, if they didn't just go by the wayside in Washington and Minnesota, I thought he had the chance to get into the Hall of Fame.
Donovan McNabb couldn't get into the Hall of Fame. If Kurt Warner never won a Super Bowl, he would have been looked at in the same light as Donovan McNabb because he would have been the guy that couldn't win the big one. Donovan McNabb is looked at as a guy that couldn't win the big one because he went to 4 or 5 NFC title games, won one. And lost 1 Super Bowl where the most thing that he's remembered in that Super Bowl is throwing up in the huddle.
It's unfortunate because I'm always a big proponent of teams win Super Bowls, not individuals. So I don't like putting all the blame on a quarterback. Because that was that year that he did lose to New England in the Super Bowl. He finally had a weapon in Terrell Owens instead of throwing it previously to Todd Pinkston and James Thrash. So
James Thrash was a beast in a couple video games. I'm just going to throw
that. But not in real life.
Yeah, but I mean, all in all, I think the Hall of Fame ceremonies were good. I'm disgusted with the NFL for screwing up the Hall of Fame game because even though it's preseason, the Hall of Fame game is always a staple in starting the NFL season off right. So who knows? Maybe we'll look back on this in a couple months and say, wow, we should have seen this crazy season coming when the Hall of Fame game got canceled. But I think all in all, this was great ceremonies.
Yeah.